Oh.
Until we get that.
The math.
So this woman thinks that she has a scar.
What are you trying to do? Go full screen? My screen, got it. Oh, yeah, but that's not my screen. I want the full, I want the full. So right down here. Oh, you got it. Oh, you got it. Got it. Perfect, perfect. How are we doing?
Happy to have you back.
Good to be back. Yeah, no, this is it. It looks like we're going to get even some more people in this time. That's good.
Very popular in this office.
Oh, is that right? I love that. That's good. Why not? Popular is good, right?
Right, exactly.
Tommy, how are you doing, my friend?
How are you? I don't know if I have a seat here.
You can take a spot. Somebody canceled last minute this morning.
She moved some extra chairs in, so maybe. Anyway, she's the boss. You know.
I know that. Anybody, yes, ma'am. Work out pretty well. Right, down, folks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I went to Canada.
We can practice that.
Right, last week, 2 weeks ago, maybe? I was kayak fishing. Didn't catch it. So I saw that one. That was awesome.
It's so bad.
Hey, how are you? I'll come right up front.
Front row people, you know, it's really funny you say that. So Gary and I, after we've been teaching Keller Williams University for a while, came to this realization that the room always stacked itself highest production to lowest production from front to back. That all the highest achievers were front row people.
Or there just wasn't a seat.
No. That's right. You're saying they all showed up late, so they came in, and since they're top producers, they don't care. They walk in front of everybody, and you know. No, I just read it, and we would say that to people. You know, we could also tell this was particularly more for owners. The ones in the back of the room, you know, standing against the wall like that, you know, you knew they were not good.
Yeah.
They were not high
They were not
achievers.
happy to be there. Yeah.
No, they weren't going to get anything out of this. It was going to be like, prove it, show me. You know,
That's
kind of
funny.
thing. So anyway, no, it's funny how people's learning styles, right? And I think that's one of the things you're promoting, you know, here is that you want people that are learning based. You're filling the environment with learning opportunities, and that's a big deal.
Yeah.
You know, it's one of the commitments. It's really, when Gary and I sat down and we were looking at the 7 systems we wanted to install in a company, the university was like the third one. I mean, it was important, but there were 2 foundational ones that had to happen first.
Mhm.
But then education and training was the next one.
The next one, yeah.
Yeah, high priority. So I'm going to want to keep track of time.
Good. 9:58.
Okay, so we're going to start on time. And then you can maybe give me a warning at 11 o'clock.
I can definitely do that.
Yeah. Give me a 1-1.
Okay, got it.
I mean, I've got the clock back there, but I kind of have,
I know, it's easy to get.
I kind of have to lean over to get to it. How's the work going?
It's going really well.
Are
Thank
you
you.
liking it?
I am.
Are you liking it?
I
I mean, is it's suiting you and it's what you wanted it to be? And it's such an important in all of the Keller Williams model. I mean, every position's important, right? The OP, the TL, and the MCA, that's the triangle right there. But if you don't have a strong, people-oriented, intelligent TL, it struggles. Struggles.
No, it's a lot, but I think I'm 4 weeks in. So, but it's.
Well, if you ever want to talk sometime about
Oh, I would love it.
philosophy of the job, right? Because I think there's a way in which because there's always more to do than you have time to do.
Right.
That's the key. So what you have to do is do what matters and not let what you're letting go weigh you down. Because that negative feeling of deficit, oh, I should be doing this, I could be doing that. Somebody criticizes you, how come you're not, and you gotta steel yourself against that because it's that demanding, Yeah.
Good advice. Thank you.
So we'll get a chance to do that. All right, it is 10 o'clock and we are rolling. What do you? Hey, what?
Get your track.
This is my class.
Get your track shoes on. Get your track shoes on. You're gonna learn hard and fast from one of the best I've ever been with.
Thank you, my
That's
friend.
it. Dave, Jenks, give him a hand.
Thank you. Dave Willingham. He is on the all-star team of Keller Williams International faculty, as you know, the most sought after across the country that we have. So let me tell you what we're going to do in the next. We are going to fly. There's a lot I want to pack into this next hour and 15 minutes. And it's interesting. One example of it is the fact that I'm here. Because a year ago in March, when things started to collapse, right? Locked up, COVID, all that stuff going on. And my primary source of income at this time of my life is my Keller Williams profit share, which, by the way, pay attention to it because that can make a big difference in your life, right? But I live on that. And all of a sudden I went, oh my God, the real estate market's the bottom's going to fall out. And I'm going to be out on the street. I'll be a bag man out on Preston Road. So what's interesting was I said, okay, what can you do? Well, first of all, 2 years ago, I reconnected with the company. I'd been away for 10 years, reconnected with Gary, started going to RD meetings, started doing some training. I said, why don't I do what I can to power up Keller Williams in this time in my own way? I'm not an employee of Keller Williams International. So I reached out to OPs and team leaders and said, hey, I'm available if you want to do some training. I started an initial seminar called Power Up, Pivot Smart, because we were all in the pivot game, right? And I started getting responses to that. And I was charging people for it and they were paying. And I said, no, well, there's a good thing, right? I mean, this is, but here's the thing. So today is my 215th Zoominar since last March. And how did that happen? Well, it didn't happen by accident. It happened because of what we're going to talk about today. Vision, contribution, and intention, right? So it's the question is, how can you get what you want? Now, this is a little bit of a dangerous topic because it so easily can turn into self-judgment, In other words, being more focused on what you don't have than on what you do have. So one of the couple fundamental things I want you have in your mind, I use the Linda McKissick philosophy. Be happy with what you have while going after what you want. Write that down. Be happy with what you have while going after what you want. So there's nothing wrong. You're in a room full of, and this market center is a symbol of high achievement. I mean, the people that have come here and gone on and been leaders in Keller Williams is amazing. So you are at a citadel of high achievement. But the point is, it doesn't come from a feeling of lack. It comes from a feeling of desire, but not self-judgment, right? So don't judge where you are. Be happy with where you are. Now, there's a whole new realm of psychology that's out there that I would put you in touch with. It's called positive psychology. In 1998, a gentleman by the name of Martin Seligman stood up in front of the American Psychological Association, and he was its president, and he said, we have spent decades studying mental disease and mental disorder, and it's time we started focusing on mental health and mental functioning. And I'm going to found a movement called positive psychology, and he did. And the writing that's come out of that. And I have a list of my top 10 books in personal achievement, which I will send to you, with desk time. How do you earn it? Dave@kw.com. You send me an email, dave@kw.com, and give me your 3 ahas. So don't do it right now. Give me your 3 ahas from this session, 3 things that stood out to you, your insights, and I'll send you that list. Plus, I'll send you all the slides that I'm going to cover today. Because what we're dealing with is getting more of what you want out of life. And here's another little foundational piece. It's not comparative and it's not competitive. At the level of personal achievement, it's not comparative and it's not competitive. Yes, we're in a competitive business. We have to compete for the business out there. We talked about that last time in Why List With Me. Of course, we're in that business. But from your point of view, it's not comparing yourself with others or trying to compete until you maybe get at the highest level, right? Like the ones that were in the Masters golf tournament. They are competing against it. They are competing to get the green jacket or the gold medal or whatever. So there's some people in real estate, once they get their production to a certain level, now they are trying to see if they can beat somebody else, right? That's okay. But at the level for most of us, it's not comparative and not competitive. It is about getting what you want. And there's not just one model for doing it. And I want to share 3 models that I had a chance to experience, right? One is Gary Keller, one is Mo Anderson, and one is me. Now, we are all 3 of us high achievers. We're getting what we want out of life. But here's the thing. Gary gets it with focus, Mo gets it with work ethic, and I get it with creativity. Now, not that they don't have those things too, but when you look at what's your go-to strength, right? Gary, it's focus. See, the interesting thing people don't understand, here's the guy who built the greatest company in the history of real estate and who has created more millionaires than anyone else ever in the real estate industry. And let me tell you, when I started working with him on Keller Williams University, he was never in before 9 or 9:30. He was always gone by 3:30 or 4. Why? Well, he wanted to spend that morning time doing exactly what he says in MREA, launching his day with his meditation and prayer, with his workout, with his breakfast with the family, and with his planning for the day. And then he'd show up. But when he was in the game, whoa, there was no one more focused. You did not interrupt. We're going to talk about that later, about controlling your own time. Nobody controlled Gary's time. Gary got what he wants because he did what he wanted when he wanted. You get that? He did what he wanted when he wanted. That's how he got what he wanted. Powerful example. If you don't have to be a workaholic to operate at the highest level of personal achievement. Gary's a great example. Mo Anderson, on the other hand, is a work ethic. No one outworks Mo Anderson. Hours and hours. She would work, she'd get there at 6 a.m. She'd work until 7. She'd go home, have dinner, come back with her tracksuit on and work until 2 in the morning. In those early days, work ethic, farm girl from Enid, Oklahoma, right? I mean, she just, now, and she would tell you, she's not as quick as Gary, right? She said, I have to do everything slow. I'm a slow learner. If every time I give a speech, I have to have it written, I have to repeat it and rehearse it many times before up, and I still am going to go up and basically read it, right? She said, that's it, but she did the work. This is the important thing. She knew what she wanted. She knew she wanted financial independence. She knew that Keller Williams was the way for her to get that, which is why she came on board as a regional owner in Oklahoma and then was appointed CEO. And she's now a multimillionaire. That was her goal. She is getting what she wants, right? But she did it with work ethic. Now, Dave did it with creativity. I'm a sprinter, in the sense I'm a long hauler, but I work in batches. I'll get my mind going. I kind of back burner, and then all of a sudden, man, I'll plunge into a project, and what'll come out in the next 2 hours is amazing, right? I know what I want, but I have to work it. I have to be ready for that creative time. Right? That's why we wrote the books. That's why I do the training. That's why I put together these programs to take across the country, right? Because that's where I go. That's my go-to place. And so the interesting thing is that there's different ways to get where you want. And I want you to understand that before we dive into this, right? But then there are fundamentals of getting what you want. Let's take a look at it. I think there's 3 steps, right? 3 fundamental steps. Number 1 is you got to give yourself permission. So many of us are locked into meeting other people's expectations. I mean, for my whole, this is interesting. What I'm going to teach you, I didn't learn until I was 40 years old. The early part of my life was all trying to make it on just raw energy. And yes, I had creativity and some intelligence, but I went to college because I was supposed to go to college, and I went and got a master's degree because I was supposed to get a master's degree. And then they said I should work in higher education, and I worked in higher education. And then somebody came to me and said, Dave, we got this job over in business, VP of sales and marketing. You interested? Well, I liked the money. So I went and took that, and so it was kind of funny. I was wandering my way along. I really was. For the first 40 years of my life, I was creatively drifting. It's like Thomas Edison said, the key to success is hustle while you wait.
Mhm.
Hustle while you wait. Isn't that interesting? And by the way, I want to add one other kind of wisdom here. And that is, there's a balance in your life between urgency and patience. And that is a tough balance, just like between being happy with what you have while going after what you want, right? There's that balance between those two. And I find that people get too urgent about the outcomes and not patient enough. So the key to me for high achievement is that you attack every day with urgency. What's on my agenda today? What am I going to do today? What calls am I going to make? Who am I servicing? What am I going to learn today? And you do that with urgency, but you're patient about the outcomes. Because in most high achievement endeavors, the outcomes take a while to happen, and you can't control when they happen. You could do all the right things, and then all of a sudden things will start coming together, right? That's what I've found in my life. All of a sudden things will crystallize, and now there's momentum going. And all of a sudden you got a bunch of listings, and all of a sudden you're having to figure out, how do I handle all this business? And, and those are good problems to have. So the first thing is give yourself permission, right? You do not have to live by other people's expectations. And what I like to say to people is, your future is not determined by where you've been or where you are, but where you intend to go. It's all, getting what you want is all a future-oriented thing. Don't judge your past, just take it at whatever lessons you learned, move on to it today. So give yourself permission. Gary gives himself permission, I can tell you that. He knows that he gets to go after what he wants. That's his primary thing. Now, what he knows is, and this is the Zig Ziglar rule, you will get what you want in direct proportion to the number of people who you help get what they want. So in the end, when you're going after what you want, you will serve others. Think of all of the great entertainers that we enjoy, and all they went after was their love of music, their love of playing the guitar, their love of singing, right? Or they wanted the attention and the recognition. So they were really, you could say, selfish. They weren't doing it for us. But in mastering that talent or that skill, we benefit, right? These golfers, right, Mike, that we watch play the Masters. I mean, they were out there just trying to make money on the tour, trying to be great, maybe trying to be famous. We get to benefit by watching something done at an excellent level, right? So don't get too oriented about having to be altruistic or serving the world in your work. Do it for yourself, and in the end, you'll benefit others. I promise you, that's how it works. Number 2 is decide what you want. Now, this is the hard part. Put a star by this. First you give yourself permission, and then you decide what you want. And that's not as easy as people think. We live 80% of our lives kind of out of habit. So if we're going to do something new, it's going to take new behaviors, new skills, and new habits. And so it's not going to be easy. And we've got lots of choices in our life. So deciding what you want, we're going to talk about some techniques about how to do that in my experience. And then go for it. Just go for it. With focus, with urgency, with work ethic, and with patience. Let the outcomes happen when the outcomes happen. A lot of people judge their work in real estate way too early in their career. They say, maybe I don't belong here. I don't think this really suits me. I'm not getting, because they're not getting the results they want. But understand that's true for almost everyone in this business, other than people who come in with a big sphere of influence and a natural or developed ability to ask for business, right? There are people that do that and they launch fast. in any profession they get into, but in real estate for sure. But some of us are slower. And I will tell you, it's like I always like to put out, and many of you know, because she's from Denton, Linda McKissick, but Linda McKissick was failing out of real estate in 1991, 4 years in the business, doing about 15,000 a year in commissions. Come on, failing, ready to leave the business. And then she learned what we talked about last time, which is to go ask for business and not be attached to the answer. And that changed her career. It just totally changed her career. And 8 years later, she's the 7th level agent that we highlight in the book. Her McKissick group doing 352 transactions, 4 admins, 5 buyer specialists, 2 listing specialists, and a manager. She wasn't even managing it. She did that in 8 years. Why? Because she did what you're doing today. She showed up at training. And then she went and did it. But it didn't happen overnight. And she was almost failing. So I just say for a lot of people, they quit this business too soon. It's important to stay, right? Now, and to come to the training like here. So there's a mindset too. And this is it. First of all, it's looking to the future and seeing as possible that which is not now true. See, that's what visionaries do. Gary Keller says, I'm not a visionary like a prophet. I'm a student of the game, and I look down the road and say, well, we could be this. We sat there in 1997 and wrote down our MVVBP, and the first vision was to be the real estate company of choice for the best agents, the best owners, and the best clients. And here we are, 25 years later, we are that, right? Because we had the vision. We saw that as possible, even though all we were, Mike knows when he joined, 2,000 agents in mostly Texas, Oklahoma, and a little bit starting up in Colorado. And yet here we are, this time later, and the dominant company in the world, and the best for a lot of reasons. That's a different issue. But the point is, so that's the same thing for you, to be able to see as possible in your life what is not now true, which is why it's good to have role models. That's why it's good to hang out in a place like this. That's why it's good to be with Keller Williams, because we are full of role models. We are full of people you can emulate and learn from. And they're all doing it slightly different ways, right? So you'll find the one that you connect with. I think mentors, put this note down, mentors matter. And mentors, see, I had 3 mentors in my life that just absolutely changed it, right? One of them, Dr. Clifton C. Thorne, taught me this, which is part of what we're talking about today. He said, the unplanned day is not worth living. Whoa, that's pretty heavy. The unplanned day is not worth living. What he meant was, Dave, look, every day it's a special gift. Use it, plan it. What do you want to do with this day? If you just wallow your way through the day, he said, what have you done? So he taught me this idea of focus and executive and being strong with yourself. And I had 2 other mentors that were different parts of my life, but mentors matter. So look around for people who you're not going to imitate them exactly, but you like what they've accomplished and you like the way they've done it, and you can learn from it. That's it. We all learn by imitation and role modeling. So vision. And then the second one is foresight, and that's seeing how to get there from here. And that's what MREA was meant. We wrote MREA as a path. We wrote MREA for agents that wanted to take their business to the highest level. In a month, we're coming back here and doing the overlooked secrets of MREA. And you'll enjoy that class, because there's some things in that book that people don't realize that are magical and that just pop out. And we wrote it so that those who had the vision could see the path. That book is a path. This is what you do. If you want to take your real estate career to the highest level, not necessarily build a team. A lot of people misunderstand that MREA is about building a team. Yeah, at the back end, if you want to, if you choose to, but it's not. It's about getting the most out of your career, what I call dollars per hour. That's what it is. So if you want to do that, then there's the path. And then we put the tactical path in with shift. But the point is, it's about the path. And then it's determination, because here's the thing in life. There will be obstacles. Gary Keller says you fail your way to success. I think it's true. I think we learn more when things go wrong than we do when things go right. We just do. We learn, okay, what could we do differently? Where did we not quite get it? Whereas when something goes right, we went, well, that's good. Nothing wrong with things going right. But they don't teach us as well. So understand that there will be obstacles, there will be overcomes, and be committed. Underline the word committed. Tom Caldwell, I just had a wonderful exchange of emails with him this last week, because when I was teaching a Zoominar to the people in Colorado, I honored Tom Caldwell. Tom Caldwell was the president of Van Schok Realty, the largest independent company like an Ebby Halliday in Denver. And he went to a meeting in Florida, and Gary Keller and Dave Liniger spoke at the meeting. And he came out of that meeting, he said, Gary Keller is the future of real estate. He went back, resigned his cushy job as CEO of Van Schok, went down to Austin and signed up to take Keller Williams to Colorado, right in Remax's backyard. Amazing, amazing. Made it grow, sold the region for $2 million. And he and his wife, Gwen, just travel the world because he's a history buff. So he's kind of doing all that. And I got to talk with him. But here's what he said to me. He said, Dave, the key to success is doing what you say you'll do. Commitment. Be a person who makes commitments. Doing what you say you'll do. It's a powerful phrase, right? So I would say that's what I mean by determination. When you set out to make this many phone calls, do it. When you set out your daily schedule to do these things, do it. Speaking of daily schedule, by the way, here's one of the secrets of success. Get it started early. Now, Gary Keller started at home with that rhythm that I told you he did, so he got to work later, but I had to get to work early, because what I found was if I didn't have an early appointment, I wandered around and I let myself get depressed and put things off and, all those bad mental things that happen. So getting into a place where you're doing your primary work early is important. Floyd Wickman, one of my early mentors in the business, great real estate trainer, called it GITO. So that was his motto, GITO, get into office, GITO. So that's what they'd say in the classes with him. And he had an outfit called Sweat Hogs, and he was dealing with a lot of agents. That was what it was called, the class. And it was a magnificent class. And it was meant for people who were underachieving in real estate. They were failing out of real estate. He said, I want to focus my work on the bottom 1/3 of people in real estate. And I'm going to take them up to the top 1/3. And so he focused on them. And he said, for those of you that are struggling, GITO, because that's where the energy is, right? So that's one of the things. Plan your day to get it started early. That's what I found for myself too, as a person who has dealt with cyclical depression until I got it figured out. But I mean, that took me, 40 some years. And so I had to get something going early in the day. So mindset, skill set. Now, so we have the mindset. And now we have the skill set. There's a set of skills for getting what you want. Number one is practice everything you work on. Practice, try, rehearse, just like the scripts we learned last time we were here. It's really, you have to put in the work to master it. Repetition is the mother of mastery. Repetition is the mother of skill. Repetition is the mother of learning. That's why, as Dick knows and Mike knows, that the top agents that we have known in Keller Williams went to more training than anybody else. I mean, Linda McKissick says, I went to career visioning 12 times, and here she is, top of the game. But she said, every time I went, I learned something more, one more thing, or I was ready to apply it. So study the game, try, TRY, the real you. You don't know who you are until you try something. TRY stands for the real you. So try new things. Somebody once asked me, Dave, what would you say? What would be one of the lessons that you learned in your life? And it's funny because it hit me at that time. And I said, doing that which I wasn't ready to do. One of the biggest learning experiences with me was doing things I wasn't ready to do. When I got appointed as regional director and CEO of Century 21 in upstate New York, I wasn't ready for that. I had no idea what it took to be a CEO, but I wanted it. Right. So it's okay to want something you're not ready to do. Just go, you'll learn on the job, right? On the job training is a great place to learn. Give yourself that permission to not have it all figured out ahead of time, right? One of the things that we used to say was that constant improvement is better than delayed perfection. That's a really important learning thing. Constant improvement is better than delayed perfection. A lot of people put things off. Oh, my listing presentation isn't ready yet. Oh, this mailer isn't ready yet. Oh, I haven't got ready. It's not quite where I want it yet. I'm working on, one of the things, Mike, I call consultees. Gary and I always kept at least 15 or so agents we were consulting with, just so we kept our hands in the game, right? No matter what was going on. And I would call somebody and I'd say, so how's it going? And I'd say, great, I'm getting organized. Man, that's the worst thing. When somebody tells you, I'd go, no, that means you're putting things off. Getting organized is a way to put things off. It just is. Because by the way, just get at it and you'll organize it as you go. But don't put it off. That's it. So getting organized is not the game. Whoops. Oh no, I hit the wrong button. Discipline. And this is one of the things, it's staying at it every day. I think when they talk about disciplines, it's setting up a schedule for yourself or for the day or the week that you really stick to. Chris Heller said, when they asked him his success, San Diego, he said, I just plan my day and then do my plan. In other words, I just show up and do what I said I was going to do. I do my work. So it's really a good idea to schedule that day, particularly the time blocking part of it. We'll talk about that in a second, and then stay at it every day. Now, time block is in your mind, put a little circle around time blocking. Time blocking is an appointment with yourself to do an important part of your life, whatever that is. So we say 3 hours a day lead generation, and I think that's a fundamental. I think you set aside 3 hours a day to do lead generation. On page 79 of the book Shift, we tell you what to do in those 3 hours. It's right there. Okay, it's not just one thing. It's just not making phone calls. It's not that kind of dumbed down way of looking at lead generation. It's the whole game of lead generation. So you take 3 hours and all you do in those 3 hours, the only thing you allow yourself to do in those 3 hours, no interruptions, is lead generation. And whatever aspect of it that is. And that's why I take you to that page 79, because there's a lot of different things that are part of lead generation. Okay, and a lot of people sort of dumb it down and think, oh, it's just making phone calls to for sale by owners. Come on. That's one little method, but that's the worst one you can think of. So that's what you say. I can't do 3 hours of calling for sale by owners. Of course you can. Who can? There's nobody hates themselves that much. It's just, they don't even, no, they don't. I know great phone prospectors who have a mix. They'll call past clients, they'll call around their listings, and they'll call for sale by owners. Right. But they always mix them in, because they said, if I spend too much time doing that, I'll kill myself. That's it. So I need to get some nice, friendly people that know me over here. So do it. Do it. Also, do what suits you. Do what suits you. In other words, there are so many different ways to succeed at lead generation. So many different ways, and they're all listed in MREA. Take a look through that list. I think you only have to master 3 of them. There's a list of about 25. Master 1, master 2, master 3 ways of generating business. Pick the ones that are good for you. Anyway, stay at it. Oh, time block. I just want to be real clear on this, how important that is. A lot of people will ask Gary and Jay and I, how did you write the best-selling book in the history of real estate? 1.4 million copies sold. But you were growing this and still number 1 on Amazon.com today. But you were building this little company. You only had 5,000 or 6,000 agents at the time. You only had 20, 25 national staff members. You guys were just, got to be busy trying to grow this company. How did you get the time to write the best-selling book in the history of real estate? And I say, my answer to that was Tuesdays with Gary. Because every Tuesday afternoon from 1 to 4, we worked on the book. Every Tuesday afternoon, 1 to 4. We started that in mid-March, and 10 months later, we had a bestseller. 1 day a week, 3 hours a day. So that's the magic of when you set aside a time block to accomplish something big, you can do it. All right, discipline. And here's the habit. So you make it part of who you are. So one of the toughest things to do in life is change your fundamental rhythm of how you work and what you focus on and how you treat yourself and how you talk to yourself and the skills you have. It's not, and those become habitual. That's what we talked about last time when I said, if you master your scripts and dialogues, they will become part of your habit. You will talk like that. It will be powerful. You'll feel the rhythm of it. You'll even invent new scripts because you get the feeling of the power of your words, right? But you have to do it and make it a habit, because then it is a part of your natural behavior. It's a part of your natural behavior. Okay, so that's, now the payoffs are real clear. When you do these things, and they're not easy and most people don't do it, we're going to talk about that in a second. But here's what it gives you in your life: clarity, confidence, and control. 3 big words. When you are in charge of your time and your work and your goals and your activities, and you're building new habits, you know who you are, you know what you want, why you want, when you're going to do it, how you're going to do it. You have just clarity. Clarity. Gary has massive clarity all the time, because he spends a lot of time working on his, what he's going to do, why he's going to do it, when and how. And then you get confidence. We said competence leads to confidence. Competence in running your life the way you want to leads to confidence. And you don't worry, panic, or doubt. Why? Because you know what you're doing, you know you're making progress. And the important thing right now, when we live in a fear-based culture, we like we do right now, is to have our own clarity about what we're doing, right? I always love coming out of Alcoholics Anonymous, right? The serenity prayer we do at the end of every meeting. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference. Comes right out of the Stoics, Roman and Greek philosophers that talked about how to deal with difficulty in life. And I think that's important for us. It's important to stay serene about things we can't change, right? There's so much going on in the world politically and in this, and so much divisiveness and all of that, but we can't change any of that. So why would we give it any attention? Go out and list a home, help a buyer find a home. There's where the real game is. Share love in your family, right? Confidence, and then control. Then it really puts you in control. And particularly when you start getting the momentum going, and you know that you were meant to be in this business, and you were meant to be in this career, and that business and the referrals are now coming on a regular basis. The sense of being in control is a big deal. It's a big deal. So those are big payoffs right there. It's worth learning these new skills or taking them to the next level for you. So let's kind of do a review, give ourselves permission, visioning. Work your way back to now. Vision the future you see. Gary and I called it goal setting to the now. Goal setting really works backwards, not forward. It first comes backwards, meaning this is where I see myself in 10 or 15 years. Okay, where do I need to be in 5 years to be on the path to that? Okay, where do I need to be at the end of this year to be on that path? What do I need to do this month, this day, now? Right now, then, once you get that figured out, yes, now you set goals, 411, you set a goal for the week, the month, and the year, but it still comes back from that long range. I'll give you a great example. My father loved to sail on Lake Ontario, small little boats, and he had a friend of his by the name of Marsh, and he came back home one day, my dad did, from sailing with Marsh, and he said, "Hey, guess what Marsh is going to do?" I said, "What?" He said, "He and his wife are going to sail around the world." Whoa. When's he going to do that? About 10 years, he says. Okay. That's interesting, isn't it? 10 years, he and his wife wanted to sail around the world. Well, what did he have to do? He had to get a bigger boat. He had to learn how to navigate on the ocean. He had to plan out the trip. He had to get the licenses, figure out how to do it. And he had to get his business to the level where he could leave it for 2.5 years and still have it send him money. And he did all of that. And I think it was maybe 11 years. They went and took 2.5 years, traveled around the world, right? But the reason was he had that long range goal, and he worked his way back to now. What has to happen between now and then for me to do that? So then we set the goals, the path, and then we create our action plan and we get after it right now. So let's talk about a framework. See, I think life is built on a philosophic framework. I think how we approach things has to do with how we generally think about things, right? What is our view? That's what's so powerful about being with Keller Williams, is because it has a view. It has an MVVBP. It knows what it's about. It knows how it's going to treat its agents. It knows how its leadership plan works. It knows how its profit share plan works. It knows how its training systems work. It knows how to put on a 50,000 person family reunion, you know, with the power out in Austin, you know, all of those kind of amazing things, because all of that happens with this intentionality and a philosophy of thinking big and getting things done. So here's the thing I recommend. I follow the book, The 7 Habits. The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. How many have heard of the book? How many have the book? How many have read the book? How many can give us the 7 habits? Well, I know we got 2 people in the back that can. Good, good. So here's the thing. See, why wouldn't you learn those 7 habits? Why wouldn't they be right in your mind? It's only 22 words. Do you know that? The 7 habits added all together, 22 words. See, I'm a big believer in memory. That's why memorizing scripts. I think memorizing the 7 habits. Want to learn them real quick? All right, you with me? Ready? Shake it loose. Ready? Habit 1 is be proactive. You got to do these motions, because no, that's called kinesthetic learning. When you do a motion, you then remember it, right? More than if you just try and wind it around in your mind, right? So first habit is what? Be proactive. Habit number 2 is begin, point to your feet, begin with the end in mind. See where you're going, right? Begin with the end in mind. What's the first one? Be proactive. Begin with the end in mind. Here's the third one. Do first things first. That's the Dudley Do-Right thing, right? What? Do first things first. Right? Do first things first. So what is it? Be proactive. Begin with the end in mind. Do first things first. He calls those the 3 inner victories. Now here's the outer victories. Number 4 is be win-win. Heard that before, haven't you? What? Be win-win. What is it? Be win-win. Second one is seek first to understand. Oh, seek. This is okay, right? So seek first to understand. What is it? Seek first to understand. That's the key to all negotiating, is to seek first to understand and then be understood, right? We all jump too fast. So what's the 4th one? It's be win-win. Then seek first to understand. The 6th habit is one word: synergize. Give me that power move. That's synergize. One more time. What is what? Synergize. In other words, if you're ever going to do something, do it with other people. That's why the S in Y4C2Ts is success through people, right? That you will get what you want in direct proportion to the number of people who you help get what they want. So do your success through other people, right? So it's what? Synergize. And then, so let's do the three external habits. It's be win-win, right? Seek first to understand, synergize, and then the 7th habit that wraps them all, right? It's three internal, 3 external. And then one that wraps them all is sharpen the saw. It's what we're doing today. Sharpen the saw. A lot of people work with a dull saw. The smart people go and sharpen their saw and go through a lot faster, right? So 7 habits, ready? 7 habits of highly effective people, right? Be proactive, begin with the end in mind, do first things first, be win-win, seek first to understand, synergize, sharpen the saw. Give yourself a hand. You did great. See, now what's fun? Here's what's fun. When you have a philosophy like that, then you automatically start having thoughts like, well, what's the end I'm seeking here? Let me begin. What's the end I'm trying? What are we trying to do in this committee? What am I trying to do with my lead generation right now? What do I need to do in this transaction? You're always thinking about that, right? And then what would be the win-win thing to make this work? What would be win-win? So anyway, all of those really work. The 8th habit, by the way, is find your voice. That's a fun one. He wrote a whole book on that. Find your voice, right? In other words, go at it your unique way. Go at it your unique way. Now, by the way, live by the 6 personal perspectives. See, in Keller Williams, Gary Keller asked this wonderful question when we were building Keller Williams University. He said, how is it that high achievers think differently than people who don't achieve as much? And we put our mind that way, you know, they have a positive mental attitude. Well, yeah, of course, that we sort of said, oh yeah, of course they do. Everyone knows that. But what is it that they really do differently from other people? And we built the 6 personal perspectives, and Dick will tell you, what, for 3 years, Dick, every beginning of every course, we taught the 6 personal perspectives. And I think maybe it laid kind of a foundation of truth underneath Keller Williams. Now, I think we need to go back and revisit it, but I would encourage you to do that, to go back to the 6 personal perspectives. But here they are real quickly. Number 1 is commit to self-mastery. Right? In other words, really commit to mastering your own emotions, your own nature, your own goal setting, and your skills. Number 2 is focus with the 80-20. In other words, 20% of what you do will lead to 80% of the results you want. Follow the one thing. That's what Gary wrote, right? 3rd is go from E to P. Go from, it's not nutritional, right? I was just thinking, you know, he would say, eat a pea? Could you eat a carrot? Could you eat no. So go from entrepreneurial to purposeful. Go from what comes naturally to what works. Those of us who've played with the game of golf know that people who try and swing naturally cannot hit a golf ball. Those who learn the way to hold the club and do the stance and do the way which at the beginning is so uncomfortable is exactly the way you hit a golf ball. Well, so the thing is that entrepreneurial, just using enthusiasm and energy, only gets you to a ceiling of achievement. But when you go higher than that, you have to go purposeful. And that's like read MREA, right? That's it. Go from E to P. Number 4 is be learning based. Use learning as a primary strategy for getting what you want, building your skill, increasing your knowledge, your bandwidth, you know, just do that. And then number 5 is, and this is a big one, a lot of people actually avoid this. Remove your limiting beliefs. Remove your limiting beliefs. For many of us, that involves therapy because our limiting beliefs are sitting there unconsciously and we haven't looked at them. They're holding us back. And sometimes it takes a really astute, either trainer, coach, mentor, or therapist to help us really confront that which we are thinking that's holding us back, right? There's a wonderful book, I mentioned it last time, called Feeling Good by Dr. David Burns. And in it, he talks about the 10 dysfunctional ways we talk to ourselves. It's a wonderful book. When I first read it, I realized there were 5 that I had. I had mastered 5 dysfunctional ways to talk to yourself. I was a master of bad thinking. So I had to learn how to remove those thoughts because they weren't serving me, right? So that's number 5, right? Removing. And number 6 is be accountable. And there's really 2 aspects of being accountable. One is if it's to be, it's up to me, means to take ownership of everything in your life. Everything that's turning out in your life is because of you, right? And when you own that, you can change it. When you blame it on somebody else, you give them the power. We call that being a victim, right? Versus being accountable. But there's another one too, and that's where you allow someone else to hold you accountable. And that way you increase your performance. Like that's why everyone really, all high achieving athletes have coaches and entertainers have coaches because that coach will help them achieve at a higher level. Does that make sense? So there we go. 6 personal perspectives. Use those. And then use the power tools. And we're going to get into this. There's some fundamental tools of getting what you want and staying on track. Number 1 is a spiral notebook. I learned that from Gary. I have about 165 of them now, all stacked together. And that's just a 8.5 by 11 spiral notebook, spiral so you can easily flip the pages over and lay it flat. And what you do is you write everything in there, everything that happens, get people's phone numbers, something, your to-do list, something you said you're going to do, notes from a class like this. I always put, when we would have a brainstorming session for writing all the books we wrote, I would put my notes there and you keep them in that spiral notebook. If you're using it for another project, like writing the book, then I would make a photocopy of those pages and I would put that in my folder for writing the book, but I wouldn't tear it out, right? The minute you tear something out, you lose track of it. You don't know where it is. But by the way, if it's in your spiral notebook, we all think chronologically, we'll be able to go find it. If we're trying to find someone's phone number or what did we say or what did I learn at that class? There was something I wanted to remember that script. What was it? And then you go back because you mentally can go back and find it. So having those notebooks is just, it's a power tool. And then a calendar, a really good calendar. Somebody once asked me when I was divisional president of Century 21, Dave, how do you keep track of what you do? And I said, my calendar and budget. I said, those are the two things I have limited time and limited money. So that's controls what I do. My calendar, always put it on my calendar. And by the way, I do a lot of things. This is my part of my creativity style. And that is, I will put something on the calendar I haven't invented yet. I mean, I'll do a seminar, put it on there. I'll talk to a Mike Brody and say, Mike, would you like me to teach this seminar? I mean, I haven't done it yet. I haven't put it yet. Oh yeah, Dave, that'd be great. Do this. I love that. That's a great title. Yeah. And and I'll do the 7 bullet points, right? I'll do the title and then the 7 things you're going to get from going to the seminar. Haven't done the seminar yet. You understand that? Then I put it out there. Now it's on the calendar. And now what I have to do? Invent the seminar. So that would be the same thing like doing a buyer seminar. Say you wanted to send out to your people, I'm going to do a first-time buyer seminar. I'm going to use the book, My First Home. It is, written by Keller Williams. I'm going to do this wonderful 1-hour session. Going to have a mortgage officer with me there and all that. Decide to do it, schedule it, get the flyer sent out, and then figure out what you're going to do. I know it's dangerous, but it's fun living on the edge. Okay, and then the 135 and the 411, and I'm going to hit my version of those 2 things. You get a lot of this because Keller Williams, by the way, one of the things that people don't understand about Keller Williams, it's an interesting thing. North Florida, Georgia Alpazar, from right here, the regional director of North Florida invited me to come in on Friday or to speak Zoom to a gathering of a summit of cultural summit. And in it, I'm going to talk about the steel beneath the velvet, because I said one thing about Keller Williams is, yeah, we have the Y4C2Ts and KW Cares and the feel good side, but the other side is we are tough. We get things done. We are masters of achievement, and we are. And so what you find about us, the 135 and 411, is we're a company that really understands how independent contractors succeed. We really understand that. We know the game of productivity and accountability, and it's blended right in everything we do, right? Which is why we have more high achieving agents than any other company, right? Because we know how to do it at every level, at the beginning level of real estate, at the what I call the growth phase, and then at the high end where you have a business or a team, right? We know it all. We know all the levels. So we'll take a look at those. So here's the thing that I want to really touch briefly, and that is, why do so many people struggle with goal setting and planning? Why is it? The general rule of the research is that fewer than 10% of people have written goals. Fewer than 10% of people have written goals, and they're out earning 4 or 5 times more than the people that don't have written goals. It's a differentiation. And even in real estate, which is an achievement-oriented, self-directed business, independent contractor business, fewer than 20% have written goals. And why is that true? Well, here's why. Let's take a look real quick. Because having goals really requires thinking. And thinking is hard work. A lot of people fill their life with noise, fill their life with TVs, fill their life with music playing, fill their life with talk shows, fill their life with all kinds of even tons and tons of social activities, mostly so they don't have time to think. And that's the end result. They don't have time to think, but there is nothing more important than taking that quiet time. So one of the things I would highly recommend is taking 2 or 3 hours a week and setting it aside to think about your business. That's all. Get a quiet place, uninterrupted, cup of coffee maybe, 2 hours for sure, 3 maybe, and do nothing but think about your business. Have a journal, make notes, thoughts. Really think about, what do I want to do with my business, with my life, whatever it is. It's just think time. And that's why Gary Keller highly recommends starting the day with, 15 minutes to a half hour of meditation. I mean, that feels a little spiritual, but I think it actually goes to getting your mind in a thinking state. Second was, it requires decisions. That to say yes to one thing is to say no to a bunch of others. When we say yes to a particular goal, we're going to say no to a bunch of activities that aren't part of that, a bunch of hobbies, a bunch of maybe even relationships. So it requires making decisions. It requires making commitments. You know how hard it is for people to finally decide to make an offer on a home, right? In other words, making commitments is one of the big things to do. And then, of course, there's work. Every time you set a goal, then there's going to be work to go get it. And a lot of people don't set goals so they don't have to work. They just kind of keep winging it every day. Nothing wrong with that, by the way. I'm not judging it. I'm just telling you that gets in the way of getting what you want, right? So here's the thing that's the key, and that is know why you want. Know why. Put a big circle around why. Know your why. Know your why. As one of our top agents in Big Bear, Tim Wood in Big Bear, California, said, he said, the right why kicks the butt of any how. The right why kicks the butt of any how. He said, you don't have to know how until you know why. When the student is ready, the teacher appears. Some of you are ready today, the teacher has appeared. You know, so in other words, when you know why, the how will show up. So you need to, you know, so the question we ask is, what's your big why? What is the big thing? What is it that matters the most to you? It might be a spiritual thing. It might be a family thing. It might be a personal accomplishment thing, whatever it is. What is it? And by the way, that changes over time. So what are your other whys? What are the things that matter to you that you're trying to accomplish? Why would they be important? Why would it be important to double your income? Why would it be important to succeed in real estate? You know, why would it be important to you to get control of your time? All of those things. What are your whys? And then there's a wonderful book called Switch. How to make change when change is difficult. It's called Switch, is the one-word title, by the Heath brothers, Dan and Matt Heath, Heath. And it's a wonderful book. And it just says this is why it's difficult to make change, and here's how you do it. But they have a little East Indian metaphor in there called the driver, the elephant, and the path. And what it says is everything in life is about a driver, elephant, and a path. And the driver is the executive part of you that decides what you want. This is what I want, or where you want to go. This is where I want to go. That's the executive function of you. The path is the way to get there. You got a map, or you've got MREA, or you can see the path to get where you want to go. But the biggest challenge in the world is motivating the elephant. It is, because that elephant is powerful, unstoppable. Your subconscious, your creativity, your abilities, you are massive, way more than we ever understand. They are there. But we've got to get the right message to our subconscious. And the two messages are what we want and why we want it. And when the elephant understands that there's peanuts at the other end, or there's hay or whatever, then wow, the power that comes before you. So that's one of the things that's interesting about written goals. Write this down. Written goals happen magically. And I really would tell you this in my life. Written goals happen magically. When you write down a goal, I was a district manager for Century 21 in Syracuse, New York, making $18,000 a year. And I wanted to become regional director. I wrote down a goal. I want to be regional director for Century 21. And the regional directors made 150,000 plus bonuses, right? I mean, it was kind of, but I that was my vision. I wanted that. And so I just wrote down that goal. It was one of my first ever goal setting classes, like today would have been. Wrote down that goal. 3 years later, I was regional director. Unbelievable. It happened magically. Now I had to do some work and I had to learn some things, but because that was my goal, I started to learn those things and do those things. I got more assertive, and it doesn't matter, whatever it was that happened. Now, here's an interesting one. Trust your intuition. Write this down. When you're writing down goals, trust your intuition. In 1992, I was divisional president, one of 6 in the country for Century 21 out of Dallas, out of Las Colinas, actually, for 7 states. And I was doing my goals, my annual goal setting. And I was kind of in this creative mood. I'd been doing a little dream listing, but now I was writing down my goals. And here's the goal I wrote down. I want to be an executive leader in the real estate company that takes the industry into the new millennium. This was in 1992. I was with Century 21. And why did I write that goal down? It's a silly goal. It's too vague, right? I want to be an executive leader in the company that takes the real estate industry into the new millennium. Guess what happened? Yeah, I got fired by Century 21. I joined Keller Williams, and here we are, the company that's leading the industry in the new millennium. Isn't that funny? It's just funny. I look at that, it's like a miracle. So it's okay to expect miracles. When you write down what you want, it's okay to expect miracles. They can happen. Can't guarantee them, but they can, right? So the question is, what are your unique motivators? What is it that really you like to do? Lots of people do the way they do real estate, they do it in their own unique way. They market themselves uniquely. They market themselves to a target audience. They express the benefits of working with them uniquely. They have different graphics that are memorable and different. So it's okay to be you, to do it uniquely. There's not just one way to do this. Now, here's how we make it work. Remember the power of our intention. Commit to this process of planning. It's a process. We're going to show that in just a second. Make it a habit, and then connect it to your whys, and then use the power tools. And let's finish up looking at the power tools in the next 20 minutes. I want to do this. So one of the big, I think there are four power tools for getting what you want. One is called the dream list with lights. This is a little clever thing that Keller Williams doesn't teach, but Dave Jenks does. There's the 135 and the 411, and I'm not going to repeat what you probably already have learned there, but I am going to highlight why they're so important as a tool. And then finally, the simplicity of a powerful accountability process. So let's use the dream list with tools. Here's the big challenge in life, I think. It's giving yourself the creative permission to discover what you want without at the same time trying to talk yourself out of it. You know, your mind has like two parts. It has the part that says, ooh, we could do this. And the other part goes, no way. That's too hard. That's not you. You've never done anything like that. You know, who do you think you are? Yeah. So we have this negative part of our brain. By the way, it's there. It's the worry circuit. Mothers have it immensely. It's always great for us young boys because we let mom do the worrying. You know, she's got that circuit mastered. So you got the worry circuit, but it does serve you because it's trying to prevent things from going wrong. It just gets overpowered, right, in your life, and it gets in the way of you really going after what you really want. So I call this dream listing, and the way it works is you take that negative part of your brain, that critical, it's not negative always, it's critical, analytic part of your brain, and you send it to its room. Tell them that you're going to do some dream listing, but you're not going to make any decisions till they get a say in the process, right? That's important. You need to assure them that, or they will not go to their room. So they go to their room. Now, here's what you do. You sit down and you creatively build your dream list. You just turn it on. You just say, okay, I'm going to take 2 hours, maybe 2 or 3 different sessions. This is what I did the first time I did it. And then it is typically an hour once every 6 months. And basically what you do is you write down everything you can think of that you would like to have, that's possessions, do, experiences, travel or accomplish things or climb things or, you know, whatever it is, or become. I'd like to be more confident. I'd like to be in charge. I'd like to be the executive of the company that takes the industry into the next generation, the next millennium. So this is, and what you do is you try and get as many items on this list as you can, because you want to get past the automatic thinking that you've always done about this is what you should do, right? You got to get past the shoulds. It's not that the shoulds are wrong, but you've got to get past them to get to the things that really may be your inner motivators. This is an exploratory venture. Now, by the way, the thing that's important is, do you say to yourself, just because I write it down doesn't mean I'm going to do it. Just because I write it down doesn't mean that I even care to do it. But it has occurred to me, so I'm going to write it down, right? Because this feeling is, oh, if I write it down, I'm committed to it. No, we're a long ways from a commitment. This is exploratory. You're just letting your inner self, your inner child come up, and, you know, some of the ideas you write down might be illegal or immoral. Write them down anyway. No, really, write them down anyway, only because it's a clue to something. It's a clue. It's a clue. And then let it lead you to more things. In other words, you say, I want to travel the world. Okay, write it down. They say, well, I'd really like to go to Japan. I'd really like to go to Italy. Okay, it doesn't matter. And don't worry as you're doing this list, because you want to get up around 200 or 300 items. You want to get around 200 or 300. Don't worry about whether you already wrote it down once already. Oh, did I need to look back? No, don't do any looking back. This is a creative brainstorming approach. Yes, it's personal. So but if it occurs to you, you ought to write it down. You get that? That's the creative part. Now, I recommend doing it on a spreadsheet because you're going to see why that's later. So if you don't know how to use an Excel spreadsheet or a spreadsheet, get somebody to show you. It's easy. Just set it up, huh? Oh, okay, thank you. So, so you do the spreadsheet, and so then what you have is the first column is going to be your dreams. Your dreams. You do them in short words that trigger it. Doesn't have to be detailed. Okay, that's the first column. Now you've got that. All right, now you bring in your critical mind, your analytic side, and you're going to ask 2 questions. After every dream, you're going to put, how doable is it? So you have a column right after that dream item, doable. And 10 means it's easy, and 1 means it's hard. Travel, sail around the world, a 1 or a 2. Call my mother and tell her I love her, a 10. Easy, right? So whatever that item is, you're going to give it a rating of 10 to 1. 10 for easy to do, 1 difficult. All right. Now you go to the next column and you write import. And then your analytics says, how important is this dream really for me? And 10 is, it's very important. Call my mother, 10, right? Own a Lamborghini, 2, right? I mean, it's a neat idea, but I really don't care about cars that much. And it's just so it's a 2, whatever it is. So each one, you're doing this 10 to 1, 10 for doable, 10 for important. All right, now you go to the next column and you write power. And it's a power column, and you multiply those 2 other numbers times it. So call my mother, 10 times 10, it's 100. So the highest score one of your dream list items could be is 100. And the lowest would be 1, right? So what you have now, so just go through the list, go through it fast. You're not highly analytic here. You're letting the analyst come in, but you're letting them have their first cut at it, right? Because this isn't a precision thing. It isn't meant to be precise. It's just you're really saying to yourself, okay, how doable is it? How important is it? Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Now, here's my power number. Now, here's what you do. That's why I like to do it on a spreadsheet. Now you rank them all by the power number, right? You just go in and hit the corner and you know how to do a ranking, or somebody can show you rank on column D, and it'll go from high to low. And so now your highest power numbers will be at the top and the others. Now, but you still you've made no decisions, and you're not going to decide just because it has a high number. You're not going to decide to do it. It's called the blue light. Now you're making decisions. And the blue light works this way. It's easy to start from the top of the list because it's got the power number, and you say, am I going to commit to that? Am I going to commit to that one? And if you do, in the next column, you put a date. The date you will get it done by, or the date you will begin it. So let's say I'm going to start working out 3 days a week. That's on my dream list. Okay, I'm going to start that next Monday. Boom. I put next Monday's date on there. Work out 3 days a week. If it's take a trip around the world, it might be 10 years from now, right? 31. So the thing is, you've only committed to what you put a date on. That's the thing to remember. It's not a goal till you give it a date. Otherwise, it's just was part of your exploratory process. And you may skip some with high scores and say, yeah, you know what, it's got a high score, but I'm not committed to that yet. This is where you're going into your gut about commitment. That makes sense?
Yes.
So then what you end up with is this list, and now you transfer it over onto your calendar, and now you have a set of goals. Set of goals that come off your dream list. Right now, we'll get to this in a second. So that's dream list. Now, here's the one thing that Mo brought this back to the team, and it's really important. This is the focus system. The 1-3-5 is a focus system. That's all it's meant to do. And if you get good at using the 1-3-5, you can use it anywhere in your life. You can go to a committee at your church, or you can go to your local neighborhood and say, okay, what's our 1-3-5? What's our 1-3-5? And 1 just means there's one tangible, measurable goal that if we hit that, then everything else is fine. right? That's the one, it's a measurable, tangible goal. If we hit that, then everything is fine. Then it's, what are the 3 ways we are going to get to that goal? What are the 3 priorities of that will allow us to get to that goal? Like if I was with a committee of parents and saying, okay, we want to have an after-school recreational program, the school isn't funding it. We want a place for our kids to go play under supervision. This would be a great thing to do. Okay, let's pull a committee together and say, what's our 1, 3, 5? Okay, one is we got to raise $100,000. If we raise $100,000, we can do this for 6 months. All right. What's number 1? We need to get a committee of people who will lead this and will probably be key donors. Okay, then we need to get a flyer out to everybody and get a lot of people excited about this who have children. We need to target to the people with children. And then we need to hire the staff that's going to help us do this, right? So that would be my 3. And then the creativity is under each of the priorities. That's the 5 steps. That's where you get creative on how you do that priority. That's the most creative part of this. The 1 and 3 are decisive, right? 1 is decisive, 3 is analytic, 5 is creative. So here's, if I'm an agent, here's my 1, 3, 5. It's real easy. Net income is my 1, always my 1. I want a net after expenses, 120,000 next year, right? That's my 1. My 3 are lead generation. I'm going to build my database. I'm going to lead generate. I'm going to get this many leads. I'm going to get 5 leads a week. And then the productivity is the number of transactions I'm going to do. I'm going to take this many listings, how many this many sellers. So that would be my second one, productivity. And the final one would be cost control. Here's how I'm going to control my costs. This is how my budget's going to work. You understand? And then under each of those, lead generation, productivity, and financial management would come 5 steps. Does that make sense? So when you get to yourself to the discipline of doing a 1, 3, 5, you get really clear, and it's a 1-page document, which is what's really neat about it. You can have that in front of you all the time. Now the 411, Gary's done this for years and years, and it's just simply how you stay focused. It's the focus tool. And it also, at the bottom, I say, it builds a rhythm of how you keep your focus. Because the hardest thing, so many people set goals and then they forget about them and then they look back at them end of the year and they never even came close. So what Gary Keller says is that staying focused and accountable is the most important part of achievement. Number 1 is have written goals. Number 2 is an action plan to achieve it. But he says 80% of success is having accountability. In other words, a feedback system. So that's what a 411 allows you to do. And you know what that is. It's just that one section of it is your annual goals. Shouldn't be more than 7 total, personal and business. You can divide it up, business, personal. And then each month you're breaking that down to what are my monthly sub goals or projects. And then weekly, this isn't a calendar, so you don't fill them out ahead of time. As you go into each week, you're planning what are my actions that I'm going to take this week. Now that is build such a, and I say a rhythm. So here's how I recommend it. Take 2 or 3 days, sometime between Thanksgiving and the end of the year, to plan your goals for the next year. 2 to 3 days. Then 2 to 3 hours at the end of one month to plan the next month. And then 20 to 30 minutes at the end of a week to plan the next week. Right, that's what I mean by a rhythm. You're constantly spending a little chunk of time to be clear about your annual, your monthly, and they can change. You know, if things happen during the year, they can change. Yes, sir, Tommy.
Does 135 and 411 have relationships to each other? Do they bounce off each other?
I think not exactly, because what happens is that you may have on your annual goal, you may have 3 business goals and say 3 personal. And you might have a 135 for each of those, right? For each of those key goals. So a 135 is really meant, you can't hear that. You can't hear that ring, can you? No, I can, but you can't. I mean, they tie together in that they're all about your planning for what you want to do. But 135 usually has to do with a specific thing like your production, right? And then you would transfer that production goal over to your calendar, but then you would probably also put your lead generation goal and your financial goal, and your number of listings taken, that kind of thing. So there is an interaction, but they're two different documents. They're two really different documents, two different outcomes. One is a focus outcome, the other is a staying on track outcome. And then the final thing I want to hit just in this section is an accountability system. And this is really so important that I just want to give it the emphasis it needs. It really makes things go better in life when you have a person who is your accountability coach. And it can be a friend, it can be a peer, it can be someone you pay for, like a MAPS coach or a staff member here. But it really is good to have this. Gary Keller said, I built this company on consultants. And I know that's true, by the way. And he said, here's the key about getting a consultant: find the best you can, pay them what they charge, do what they say. And I remember coming on in the early 90s, and Keller Williams was failing. It was losing money. Our early franchises weren't doing very well. We only had, out of 30 offices, we only had maybe 5 that were profitable. It was struggling as a company. And Bain Henyon was Gary's accountability coach. And he said, Gary, you need leverage. You need leverage. You're trying to do it all yourself. You can't do this complicated a system by yourself. And I know you're losing money, but you've got to get yourself some leverage. So Gary hired Mo as his CEO. And a year later, she hired me as the EVP. And there it was. Gary had the muscle. Now he had the muscle to implement what he wanted. But he did it because his accountability coach said, you got to do it. Right. So that's the thing about having. Now, you have regular, consistent meetings. I think in most production oriented, once a week is important. Once a month is minimum. But once a week is really good. And then you have a tracking system for your key numbers. And so that you know how you're doing in terms of calls or number of people in your database or number of appointments, number of listings taken. You have a production tracking system, and then you tell the truth. The important thing is not to fool yourself or try and fool your coach. It's tell it exactly like it is. And the other thing to remember is that an accountability session doesn't take long. It takes 10 minutes. An accountability meeting is a 10-minute meeting. That's all it is. As Gary Keller says, if you go more than 10 minutes, you're into therapy. You've turned it into a therapy meeting. You're trying to give an excuse for why you didn't get done what you were going to do, right? Or it's a training session. I don't know how to do that. And so here are the 5 questions. Write them down because I don't think I have them up here. So here are the 5 questions of accountability, which you already may know them. So that's good. Number 1 is, what were you trying to do? Comes right off the 411. What were you trying to do? What were your goals or activities for this period of time? What were you trying to do? Second one is, how did you do? Now you go to your tracking system. I took this many listings, I made this many calls, spent this much money, wherever it was. So second question is, how did you do? Third one is, how do you feel about that? See, it's really, every business is an emotional business. If we don't feel good, we'll make a change. And if we feel good, we'll do more of it. So how do you feel about that? It's an important question. And then the fourth one is, what are you going to do now? What are your new goals for the next week or the next month or whatever the period is? What are you going to do now? And the fifth question is, what could get in your way? In other words, that's just one of those reminders. We always said Gary Keller was the most black-hatted optimist we ever knew. Gary believes everything's possible and everything can go wrong. So you better be ready for what can go wrong. Be prepared for it. That's why you ask that question. So, ready? So it's, what were you trying to do? How did you do? How do you feel about that? What are you going to do now? What could get in your way, right? So accountability. And the final thing, I'm just going to hit this lightly, but it's really important, because when you try and go for things, you got to deal with demons. And the first one is addictions. First, I had to overcome smoking. I had to overcome alcohol as an addiction, but I also had to overcome needing to please people addiction, needing to get others recognition and approval addiction. And so the only way you overcome it, I remember coming out of Alcoholics Anonymous, they said, there's only one kind of person for whom the 12 steps won't work, and that is someone who can't be honest with themselves. Isn't that interesting? So the first step of it is being self-aware and honest with yourself, and then get into some mindfulness. And then meditation is a great way to make physical changes. if that's necessary, particularly emotional ones. Okay, so addictions. Number 2 is diversions. See, things that you used to do that were fun that aren't anymore, but they take up a lot of time. I had to do that. Golf is a great game I love to play, but there was a time in my life when it was a diversion and was getting in the way. We'd play 2 rounds of golf on the weekend and then one night a week. And it was taking too much time. Or watching football became a diversion for me that got in the way of what I was wanting to do. So it isn't all negative stuff, but you have to say, if I'm spending a lot of time doing something, is it still currently beneficial to me, right? That's all. There's no judgment about, you can do whatever you want, but the question you ask yourself is this a diversion or is this really on my path to what matters? And then the final one is distractions, because once you become a high achiever, everyone will want a piece of your time. Everyone will want your help. Oh, Dave, would you serve on this committee? Oh, Dave, just take a second. I got a question on the computer. I know you're really good with command. Can you just help me for a second? And you have to learn ways to be nice. Now, Gary Keller, for example, when we had our 3-hour meeting on writing the book, Mo Anderson, his CEO, would knock on the door and she'd stick her head and say, "Hey, Gary, I just have one question. Can I ask you real quick?" And Gary would go, "No, we're writing the book. Get on my calendar." So Gary, one of the things about Gary getting what he wants is he's rude. But just important to understand, he gives himself permission to be rude, to say no. Now, I think you can find nice ways to do this. I'm just going to teach you. I call the pause that empowers. Here it is. So Dave, we're having this committee, this fundraising committee. Would you work on that? You're so good at this kind of stuff. Oh my God. Thanks. I really appreciate you asking me. I'm honored that you're asking me. Tell you what, let me check what's on my plate. I'll get back to you this afternoon and let you know. Ring, ring. Hey, I'd love to serve on that committee, but if I said yes, I wouldn't be doing you a favor or me a favor. I'm too covered up right now. Tell you what, check back in a couple months. See, that's a lot nicer than saying no, right? But you need to give yourself that pause. If you're a yes person, I'm a yes person. I like to say yes. When someone asks for my help or opinion, man, I love to give it, right? So the thing is, you have to learn a way to say no in a nice way. The other thing is, someone says, Dave, would you help me with this computer project? I tell you what, I've got a half an hour free. There's a list on there's a piece of paper on the door of my office. Just put your name down there for a time, and I can give you 5-10 minutes on that, right? So make them fit your schedule. You're not saying no. You're just saying, I can't right now. But so find nice ways to say no. Does that make sense? But do you think it's important? Yeah, it's important to not let other people see. Somebody once said, if you don't have your own plan, you'll be part of somebody else's.
Right.
True.
Right. And it's so easy if you don't have your own plan. So that's why time blocking is good, because you've got that as an appointment with yourself. So let's just kind of bring it to a close. Here's the thing, master the key to getting what you want is master the goal setting process. Understand the power of vision. Oh, by the way, before we do this, I'm just going to say, for anyone who writes me, dave@kw.com, I will send you 3 things and give me your 3 ahas, but I will send you 3 things. One is all these slides. I'll send those to you. Number 2 is I will send you the best 16 pages ever written on high achievement by Gary Keller. It's the new introduction to the book Shift, and a lot of us don't have it because we've got the old copy. And since you may have, and it was written out of a discussion with his son, John, when John was a teenager. So it's so good, the way it talks and the way he talks to his son. It's so good for teenagers or young adults. So if you have anyone in your life that is a teenager or young adult kind of struggling with that, finding their way and maybe having a work ethic and getting at things, and you want to help them. So I'll send that to you in a digital form so you can make copies of it and share it with anyone else that you want to. So all these slides, that, and my list of the top 10 books for high achievement. Okay, top 10 books for getting what you want. So anyway, just send that dave@kw.com, but you got to give me your 3 ahas. So let's understand the power of visioning. Use the planning tools that we've talked about. Start to build those into your life. No demands, but the more you can. Avoid the distractions. Stay on track with accountability. And then the other thing is, this is a great game we play. It's an abundant life we live. What a wonderful opportunity. Feel the power, enjoy the journey. There we go. All done. Thank you. Next time, the 28th. So in 2 weeks, we meet and we're doing Magic Comes in Threes, which is about the 3 foundational ways to build your career to the next level. 3 resources you may not know about for how to draw on that. And then 3 ways to increase your mental toughness and resilience. Magic comes in threes. Be there. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave.
Thank you, Mike. How are you doing? Way on time? Oh, wait, any questions or thoughts or share? We got a little extra time. So any questions or comments or thoughts, Dick?
I've seen your what do you call it, magic of threes?
Magic comes in threes, yeah.
Yeah, I saw that with Algernon.
That's right. Yeah, I did that for Al.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
It was fantastic.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for saying that, Dick, and be here. It's really, it's fun to do this series of 5 times together, and each one is a little different. I mean, each one has a different focus. And this next one has more to focus on using resources that are there and building mental strength and resilience in tough times. So, good one. All right, good. Good. You took a lot of notes. I saw you doing. No, and by the way, I'm a big believer in note taking. That's why I love the Spiral Notebook, because I believe in note taking is where you capture ideas, and it's a kinesthetic way of learning. Even if you don't go back and look at them, the act of writing something down puts it up into your mind, right? You learn what you see, you learn what you hear, and you learn what you get physically involved with. So that's good. And then it is something you can go back and review, and that's good. Yes.
So Dave, tell everybody, I think I don't know, I know you well enough. I think there's a method to your madness on giving everybody all this information, but it's conditional on getting 3 ahas from
Yes.
each one of them. Now, why would you do that? Why don't you just give us the stuff?
Because I'm a manipulator. I like to get what I want. I want some reward. No, there's 2 things really. This is an interesting thing. One is it's a feedback tool for me about how I came across. So a lot of people will add in personal comments, Dave, this was good, or whatever it was. I like that, but it's more that I see what's being captured, right? What is it that's hitting? What is it that's sticking? Because that may change how I teach it in the future, right? So that's one. But number 2 is Dick and I and Mike and Gary, we believe in ahas. We believe that 2 things drive improvement: curiosity and questions. That's over here. But the other is ahas and implementation. And when you get an aha, that means this stuck with you and you're probably now going to act on it, right? And so if I ask you to write down your 3 ahas, it'll give you more take-home pay from this than if you didn't do that. Does that make sense? Yeah, so it's a good exercise. Thank you, Dick, for asking that. No, it's meant to be a learning opportunity. Yeah, but I will get you. Now, I usually promise to get them in one day back to you, but I'm doing 3 Zoominars today, and I have one tomorrow, so it may not be till Friday. Okay, but you'll have it by.
I knew there was a catch.
Well, it's Plano, so you guys are very patient and forgiving. So I feel I get an extra day with you. Any questions, comments? Jill, you loving your work?
Loving my work.
I love it. I could see it in her energy. She was up in the front row. We got to talk about it a little bit. There are some people that are really meant to lead Keller Williams offices. Jill really feels like one of those. I can tell her commitment, I can tell her energy level, and I can tell her intelligence. So good stuff.
Hey, Dave, I have a question.
Yeah.
You said what drives achievement is curiosity and questions. And then you said the word application. I didn't get what was before application.
No, great, thank you. So I think what drives growth is curiosity, right? But then I think it's ahas and implementation. So because Dick was asking me, why do I ask for 3 ahas? And the reason Gary Keller always ends the class by saying, okay, what are your ahas? Is that an aha leads to implementation, doing something. And I'll tell you where I really learned this. I was teaching a mastermind. This was back in probably 2004 or 5. And Mike Netzel reminds me of this, one of our great agents in Pittsburgh. And we're in this class, and I showed this video. We went out and did videos of top agents across the country of their office with their staff, what it looked like. We called it real models, right? Role models, real models. And we showed this video, and in it, Russell Shaw
his staff is 8 administrative people all packed into this little room. 8 administrative people. And it was just like this noisy stuff going on, you know, and it's interesting. And he's only got 1.5 listing specialists and 2 buyer's agents and 8 admins. He learned a great lesson there, right? So anyway, we're showing how his admins work and what they do and how this one lady can do all the CMAs as well as all the callbacks on the listing. She does all the CMAs. Anyway, we got shown us. So at the end of it, people are going, well, what do they pay him? And where does he find these people? And where is this? And I went, stop. I don't want any more questions. What I want are some ahas. Because your questions are saying there's something more I need to know before I can implement this idea. You understand that? And I said, what you need is the aha that says, I can do that. Oh, wow, that makes sense. I can. Does that make sense? So I really learned in that that ahas are more powerful than questions. Nothing wrong with questions. I'm a curious guy too. Ask them a lot, but I think ahas are the real learning trigger. Yeah.
Thanks,
So
Dave.
does that answer your question?
Yes, sir, it does. Thank you so much.
You bet. No, thanks for being here. Thank you for that. Yes, sir.
Dave, what do you recommend in regards to the 411 and 135? Is there a certain level in your career that you should be using one more than the other?
I think you use, that's a great question. He's asking, is there a time in your career when you use one more than another? I think a 135 is a creative event. That's more of a one-time thing. Here I have this project. What's my 135? Let's say, okay, we're writing a book. What's our 135 on that book? Right? And then that's a project. So I like 135s for a project or maybe one overview of an annual business, right? What's the one, but it's a one-time event. A 411 is the ongoing process for staying on track. That's the difference. And I think you use a 411 first. I think a 411 is your game, but I don't think it has to do with your level of achievement. I think you can use a 135 or a 411 at any level of achievement, and it will always help you get to your next level.
Thank you.
Yeah, you bet. Anything else? All right. Thank you. Thanks for being here. Rock and roll.
Everybody remember this afternoon, we got Wind Down Wednesday. This is our initial kickoff, 4:30. And we got Friday Burger. Burger Friday. So today, 4:30, right?
Yes.
4:30 back here. We got goodies for you.